Dr. Emily Lawson stared at the blinking monitor, her eyes fixed on the strange symbols that danced across the screen. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, unsure of what to make of the data streaming in. She had spent years studying the mysteries of space, but nothing like this had ever crossed her path. It had started as a routine signal from a deep space probe, one of many sent out to study the farthest reaches of the galaxy. The message was faint at first, barely detectable among the usual background noise, but something about it caught Emily's attention. It wasn't the usual static or simple data bursts that she had grown used to. This was something different, something urgent. The signal was coming from the distant edge of known space, an area where very few probes had ever ventured. No one had expected anything to come from that region. No stars, no habitable planets, nothing. The signal was a cry for help. "Is anyone there?" The message repeated over and over again. "We are dying. Please send help." Emily leaned closer to the screen, her heart pounding in her chest. Her years of training told her that this wasn't some random glitch. This was real. Someone, or something, was in desperate need of assistance, and the call was coming from across the stars. She quickly ran the signal through every filter, checked the transmission frequency, and traced its origin. There was no mistake. The signal was coming from a planet in a distant star system, one that was not even on any map of known space. It was a place no human had ever explored, a region where only the bravest, most daring ships had ventured, if they even survived the journey. Emily felt a shiver of excitement and fear. She wasn't the only one who had received the signal. The global news agencies were already buzzing with reports about it. However, the reactions were mixed. While some people were intrigued, others were skeptical. Governments around the world quickly dismissed the message as a hoax or a prank. They weren't ready to believe that any advanced civilization beyond Earth could exist, let alone one that would need humanity's help. As the days passed, the story began to lose traction. The signal was largely ignored by the media, and the government declared it a false alarm. But Emily couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just a mistake. Something about the signal felt real, desperate. She felt a responsibility to pursue it further, even if no one else would. In the solitude of her small, cluttered lab at the International Space Research Center, Emily made her decision. She would investigate the signal, no matter the cost. Her first step was to track down the source. She compiled all the data she could from the signal's origin, running simulations and cross-referencing it with every known star map. It wasn't easy. Most of the data was incomplete, scattered across different systems, but Emily was determined. She spent sleepless nights poring over charts and numbers until finally she found it. The planet was located in a remote part of the galaxy, far from the familiar stars and civilizations that humans had colonized over the centuries. It was a place where even the most advanced space probes had failed to return any significant data. Yet the message was coming from there. Emily knew that this was a turning point. No one had ever gone that far out into space. If there was a civilization in need of help, they would have to face the unknowns together. The risks were high, but Emily was convinced that the lives of these unknown beings, whoever they were, depended on humanity's response. If she didn't act, who would? Her mind raced with questions. What kind of species could be out there? What did they need? Why had they sent a distress signal, and why had it taken so long for anyone to respond? She had to know. She couldn't let it go. Determined to make her next move, Emily reached out to the International Space Alliance, the governing body that oversaw humanity's deep space missions. She sent them a detailed report about the signal and its coordinates, urging them to take immediate action. She was ready to make her case, but she already knew that the response would not be easy. The next morning, Emily stood before a group of skeptical officials in the grand conference room of the Alliance headquarters. It was a high-stakes meeting. With the fate of a potential alien civilization at risk, the pressure was palpable. Dr. Lawson, one of the members of the panel, began, glancing over her report with a raised eyebrow. "This signal is from a region of space that has been largely unexplored. There's no evidence that anything of significance exists out there. Why should we risk sending resources to investigate? Emily took a deep breath. She had anticipated this. The officials at the Alliance were practical, cautious people who didn't believe in taking chances without solid proof. But Emily wasn't asking them to believe in the impossible. She was asking them to act on the possibility of saving lives. "We've all seen the reports," she said, her voice steady. "We know the signal is coming from somewhere out there. It's unlike anything we've encountered before. And it's not just a random signal. It's a cry for help. Someone or something needs us. We cannot ignore this. If we don't act, we may lose our only chance to help them." There was silence in the room as the officials exchanged glances. Some of them looked uneasy, but none of them spoke up. Emily continued. "The technology we have available, the ships, the research, they are all capable of reaching this place. If we do nothing, we might as well be turning our backs on them. Do you want that on your conscience?" The room was tense, but Emily's words seemed to have made an impact. The officials were weighing their options, considering the potential costs and the consequences of inaction. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the lead officer, Commander Gregson, spoke. "We will form a team to investigate," he said, his voice firm. "But this is a risk, a big one. We don't know what we're walking into. Prepare your team, Dr. Lawson. If you want to lead this mission, you'll have to convince us all." Emily felt a wave of relief flood through her. She had done it. The mission to answer the star's call was now officially underway. Over the next few days, Emily worked tirelessly to assemble a team. She reached out to experts in space travel, engineering, and alien studies, anyone who could contribute to the success of the mission. There was little time to waste. Emily knew that every moment mattered. If they were going to reach this distant world in time, they needed to move quickly. As she worked to finalize the preparations, Emily couldn't help but wonder about the alien civilization that had sent the signal. Who were they? What did they look like? Why had they reached out to humanity? And most importantly, would humanity be able to help them in time? The Pioneer, the ship that would carry them across the stars, was ready to embark on its journey. It was humanity's most advanced vessel, built for deep space exploration, capable of traveling faster than any ship before it. It would be their lifeline, their connection to the unknown world that awaited them. And so, as the crew gathered for the launch, Emily looked out at the stars, feeling both excited and terrified. The galaxy was vast, and they were about to step into the unknown. But one thing was certain: humanity had answered the call, and they were going to do everything they could to help. The journey to the stars had begun. The Pioneer stood at the launch pad, a massive structure of sleek metal and advanced technology. It was a testament to humanity's ingenuity, designed for a journey that no one had ever dared to take before. Dr. Emily Lawson stood before it, her heart racing. This was it, the moment she had been working toward for weeks. The mission to answer the star's cry was about to begin. She looked around at the small crowd of engineers, scientists, and astronauts who had gathered to witness the departure. They were all there because they believed in the mission, in the possibility of saving an alien civilization. There was no turning back now. "Is everyone ready?" Emily asked, her voice steady but filled with the weight of responsibility. The crew, a diverse group of experts from across the globe, nodded in unison. "Ready as we'll ever be," Commander Jonathan Marks, the Pioneer's captain, replied with a reassuring smile. He was a man of few words, but his calm presence had a way of making everyone feel at ease. The crew trusted him, and Emily was grateful for that. The countdown began. Emily's mind raced as she thought about the unknowns they would face. The alien world was far away, and they didn't know what kind of dangers lay in wait, but they couldn't let fear stop them. They had a mission to fulfill, and they would not back down. The Pioneer slowly lifted off the ground, its engines roaring to life as it soared into the sky. The world below grew smaller and smaller, and soon, Earth was just a blue dot in the vastness of space. The crew's journey had officially begun. As the ship made its way through the solar system, Emily stood by the observation window, gazing out at the stars. The reality of the mission was starting to sink in. This wasn't just about answering a distress call. It was about making history. Humanity was venturing into uncharted space, answering a call from the unknown. They were embarking on a journey that could change everything. "Dr. Lawson," Commander Marks said, breaking her thoughts. "I've been reviewing the data on the alien civilization. We don't know much about them, but the signals indicate they're in deep trouble. Any thoughts on what we might face when we arrive?" Emily turned to face him, her mind still racing with questions. "We don't know much, but we know they're peaceful." The signal was clear. It wasn't just a plea for help, it was The Pioneer glided through the alien star system, its engines humming steadily. A sense of awe filled the crew as they approached the strange world that had called out to them. The alien planet loomed ahead, a green and blue orb suspended in the vastness of space. Yet, as beautiful as it appeared from a distance, something felt wrong. The planet was dying. Emily stood at the observation window, her breath fogging up the glass as she watched the planet grow larger. From orbit, she could see the scars on its surface, massive cracks in the landscape, signs of something catastrophic. There were dark, unnatural-looking structures scattered across the surface, as though the planet was already in the process of being consumed by something far worse than natural disaster. "Emily," Commander Marks's voice broke through her thoughts. "We're about to enter the planet's atmosphere. You'd better get to the command center." Nodding, Emily turned away from the window and headed toward the ship's heart, the command center. As she walked, she passed several crew members, each with the same anxious expression. The air was thick with anticipation, and no one knew exactly what to expect. This was the unknown, uncharted territory where nothing could prepare them for what lay ahead. When she arrived in the command center, she was greeted by the rest of the crew, all of whom were at their stations. The large view screen in front of them displayed a clearer image of the alien world. The surface of the planet was now visible in high detail. Jagged mountains, deep ravines, and large, unexplained craters were spread across the land. But more troubling were the strange, massive structures that dotted the landscape. Unnatural, metallic formations that seemed to pulse with an eerie energy. "It doesn't look like anyone is living there," Dr. Jacob Calloway said from his station, his fingers flying over the controls as he examined the planet's surface. "The planet's atmosphere is thin, and the structures appear to be abandoned." "But who built them?" Emily asked, her voice filled with both curiosity and concern. "And where are the inhabitants?" Commander Marks stepped forward, his eyes narrowing as he studied the data. "We'll have to find out when we land. The distress signal came from this planet, and I'm betting the answers lie somewhere on the surface. Shall we begin our descent?" Lieutenant Tara Jensen, the ship's chief navigator, asked. She was calm under pressure, her fingers dancing across the controls as she prepared for the landing. Marks nodded. "Let's get this over with." The descent began, and the Pioneer slowly entered the alien planet's atmosphere. The ship shook slightly, but the crew was well prepared for the turbulence. The air was thin, and they could see the planet's surface growing ever larger on the screen. A strange sense of weightlessness took over Emily as they descended. Even though they were headed toward a place of mystery and danger, she couldn't help but feel a thrill at the unknown that awaited them. The planet was eerily quiet. No movement, no signs of life. The distant mountains seemed to watch them as they made their way closer to the surface. As they approached their landing site, Emily could see the strange metallic structures up close. They appeared to be part of a larger, long-forgotten city, though much of it seemed to be in ruin. The buildings were shaped in odd, angular patterns that didn't resemble anything humanity had ever seen. "Looks like we've got a landing spot just ahead," Lieutenant Jensen said, pointing at the monitor. "It's a clear area, no visible obstacles." "Good," Mark said. "Let's land there and investigate." The ship touched down gently on the alien soil with a soft hum, the landing gear absorbing the weight. Emily's heart beat faster. They had made it. They were standing on alien soil. The crew immediately began their preparations. The air was thin, and they needed to wear protective suits, though the temperature seemed manageable. Emily and her team gathered their equipment, checking each other's suits to ensure everything was secure. The moment of first contact was fast approaching, and no one knew what to expect. "I'll lead the team," Mark said, turning to the crew. "Jacob, Emily, Tara, you're with me. The rest of you stay on the ship and monitor the sensors. Keep an eye out for anything unusual." With that, the airlock doors opened and the crew stepped out of the Pioneer. The planet's surface was covered in a strange, powdery substance, dark gray dust that clung to their boots as they moved. The landscape stretched out before them, a desolate world that seemed frozen in time. Emily felt a chill run down her spine as she surveyed the area. There was no life, no sign of the alien species that had sent the distress signal. Only the towering, empty structures loomed ahead. The silence was deafening, broken only by the soft crunch of their footsteps on the strange ground. "Stay close," Marks ordered, his voice low. "We don't know what we're walking into." As they ventured further into the desolate city, Emily's mind raced. What had happened to the inhabitants of this world? Why had they sent out a distress signal if their city was abandoned? The unanswered questions weighed heavily on her. They made their way to one of the larger structures, a towering metal edifice that seemed to pulse with a strange energy. It was covered in what appeared to be ancient symbols, deeply etched into the metal. Emily reached out to touch one of the symbols, feeling a strange vibration run through her fingers. The energy was faint but undeniable. "This is strange," Jacob murmured, his voice filled with awe. "This metal, it's unlike anything we've ever encountered." "It feels old," Emily replied, her voice soft. "Like it's been here for centuries." "Look," Tara said, pointing ahead. In the distance, they could see a large open area that appeared to be the central hub of the city. It was surrounded by broken structures, their walls cracked and decayed. Emily's heart skipped a beat as they moved toward the central area. The open space was dominated by a massive, circular platform at its center, covered in more of the strange symbols. It seemed to be some kind of control center, but for what purpose? "This could be the heart of the city," Mark said, his voice filled with uncertainty. "If we're going to find answers, this is the place to start." They moved cautiously, toward the platform, the silence around them unnerving. As they approached, they noticed something strange. The air around the platform seemed to shimmer. There was an energy field, thin, invisible, but powerful enough to make the hairs on the back of Emily's neck stand on end. "It's like a force field," Jacob said, his eyes wide. "But it's not something we've ever seen before." Emily stepped closer, reaching out to feel the air. But before she could make contact, a loud mechanical noise echoed through the city. It was a sound like a door opening, but much deeper, more powerful. The ground beneath them rumbled. "What's happening?" Tara asked, her eyes darting around. The air crackled with energy as the shimmering force field flickered and then faded. In its place, a doorway materialized, a large circular opening in the side of the platform. "Did we just activate something?" Marks asked, his voice tense. "I think we did," Emily replied, her pulse quickening. "But what?" Before anyone could respond, a figure appeared from within the doorway. It was tall, its body covered in metallic armor, but its face, its eyes, were unmistakably alien. The figure stood motionless, staring at them. Emily's breath caught in her throat. This was the first sign of life they had encountered on the planet. "We've been waiting for you," the alien said, its voice strange but clear. The alien figure stood still, its gaze locked on Emily and the crew. The moment felt surreal, like the calm before a storm. No one moved. No one spoke. The silence was thick, and Emily could feel her heartbeat in her ears as she watched the alien. It was tall, much taller than any human, and its body was encased in a dark metallic armor that shimmered in the dim light. The armor was intricate, etched with patterns that seemed to tell a story. Stories of a civilization far older and more advanced than anything humanity had ever encountered. But it was the alien's eyes that caught Emily's attention. They were large, luminous, and deep, like pools of endless stars, with a strange glowing light emanating from them. There was something ancient in those eyes, a wisdom that made Her feel small, insignificant? For a moment, no one knew what to say. Emily felt a sudden wave of uncertainty. They had prepared for first contact, but nothing could have prepared them for this. She looked to Commander Marks, who gave her a small nod, urging her to speak. Who? Who are you? Emily asked, her voice steady but filled with curiosity and wonder. The alien's head tilted slightly as if studying her words. Its voice, when it spoke, was deep and resonant, almost as if it echoed from within the very walls of the city. I am Zorath, guardian of the last city, it said, its words slow and deliberate. I have been waiting for you. Waiting for us? Emily repeated, confusion flickering in her mind. How did you know we would come? Zorath took a slow step forward, its movement graceful despite its imposing figure. Your signal reached us. We sent a cry for help into the stars, and the message found you. You are the answer we have been searching for. Emily's heart raced as she processed Zorath's words. The alien race had been waiting for humanity. But why? What was so important about their message that it had crossed the vastness of space to reach Earth? She needed answers, and now it seemed she would get them. Why did you send the distress signal? Commander Marks asked, his voice firm but respectful. What happened to your people? Zorath's eyes dimmed for a moment, and Emily could. The city trembled as the sound of marching feet echoed through the streets. The Varans were coming. Their heavy metallic footsteps reverberated against the walls, growing louder with every passing second. Emily could feel the urgency in the air, a palpable sense of danger that made her heart race. They had no time to waste. Zorath's eyes narrowed as it scanned the area. We must reach the weapon before they arrive. If they get to it first, everything is lost. Commander Marks nodded, his voice steady but filled with resolve. We're not letting them take it. We fight together and we win. The team quickly gathered around Zorath as they reached the center of the platform. The massive ancient structure loomed above them, its surface covered in intricate symbols and carvings that seemed to pulse with a strange, otherworldly energy. Emily's eyes darted around, trying to absorb every detail. This place felt alive with history, with power. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing at the threshold of something immense. Zorath raised a hand toward the platform, and the ground beneath them rumbled. Slowly, the massive structure began to shift, revealing a large, circular opening in the center. It was dark inside, the light from the outside unable to reach its depths. There it is, Zorath said, its voice filled with both awe and fear. The weapon lies beneath. Are we ready? Marks asked, his voice calm but sharp. We don't have much time. Emily took a deep breath and nodded. Let's do this. The team moved quickly, descending into the darkness below. The Sci-Fi air was cold and damp, the walls lined with more of the strange symbols that seemed to glow faintly in the dark. As they moved deeper into the structure, the tension in the air grew thicker. They could feel it, the weight of centuries of history, the power of a civilization that had once been at the height of its strength. The passageway narrowed as they walked, the walls closing in around them. Emily's heart pounded in her chest. They were getting closer to something monumental, something that could change the fate of this entire world. But they weren't alone. The first blast hit them without warning. It was a deafening sound, a sharp crack followed by a burst of energy that sent the crew stumbling back. Emily's ears rang as she tried to steady herself. The air around them crackled with electricity, and she could feel the heat of the blast still lingering in the air. Her heart raced as she looked around, trying to spot the source of the attack. Get down, Mark shouted, his voice commanding. The team dropped to the floor, taking cover behind the jagged walls of the tunnel. Emily's mind raced. The Varans had found them. They had no time to waste. Another blast came, this one stronger, shaking the ground beneath them. The walls of the tunnel trembled and pieces of debris fell from above, scattering across the floor. We need to move, Jacob said, his voice filled with urgency. If we stay here, we're sitting ducks. Emily glanced at Zorath, who was already on its feet, its eyes glowing brighter in the dark. Follow me, Zorath said, leading the way through the labyrinthine passageways. The crew followed closely behind, their footsteps quick and careful. They moved through the winding corridors, dodging falling debris and the occasional blast that shook the ground beneath them. Emily's mind raced as they pressed on. The weapon was within reach. They couldn't afford to stop now. "Where is it?" Marks asked, his voice tense as he kept his eyes on their surroundings. "How much further?" Zorath's voice was low and steady. "We are close. The weapon lies just ahead, but the Vorons are relentless. We must hurry." The sound of more blasts echoed behind them, and Emily's heart skipped a beat. They were getting closer, but so were the Vorons. They reached a large chamber, its walls lined with more symbols. The floor was smooth, but there was a deep pit in the center of the room, filled with swirling energy. It seemed to pulse with a power that Emily couldn't fully comprehend. She could feel the force of it, a raw energy that called to her. "This is it," Zorath said, stepping forward. "The weapon is below. We must activate the energy core to bring it to the surface." Emily felt a wave of relief wash over her. They were so close. But she knew that relief wouldn't last long. The Vorons were almost upon them. "Let's do it," Mark said, his voice low but determined. "Jacob, you're with me. We'll start the activation sequence. Tara, Emily, cover us." Emily nodded, her heart pounding as she took her position. She could hear the Vorons growing closer, their footsteps heavy and relentless. The air in the chamber seemed to vibrate with their approach, as if the entire structure was bracing for impact. Jacob and Marks moved quickly to the center of the chamber, working together to activate the energy core. The floor beneath them began to glow, and the swirling energy in the pit grew stronger, its power increasing with each passing second. Emily could feel the heat of it, the raw force of the weapon as it came to life. "Keep going," Marks urged, his voice tight with concentration. "We're almost there." But as the weapon began to activate, the sound of the Vorons' footsteps grew louder. The walls around them began to shake and the ground rumbled beneath their feet. The Vorons were here. Emily's pulse quickened as she took aim, her weapon raised and ready. She could see the shadowy figures of the Vorons emerging. From the darkness, their armored forms blocking the passageway. They had arrived. "Stay sharp," Marks shouted. "We have to hold them off until the weapon is fully activated." The first Voron lunged forward, its weapon raised. Emily fired, the shot landing squarely in its chest. The Voron staggered. Back, its armor dented but not broken. Another Voron appeared, this one larger and more heavily armored. It charged forward, its weapon crackling with energy. Emily's heart raced as she dodged the blast, rolling to the side and firing again. The Voron fell, but more kept coming. The team fought back, their weapons blazing as they tried to hold the line. "We need more time," Jacob shouted as he worked to stabilize the energy core. "We're almost there, but the Vorons won't." "Stop!" Emily gritted her teeth as she fired again, her hands shaking with adrenaline. "We won't let them win." The battle raged on, the sound of blaster fire filling the chamber. The Vorons kept coming, their numbers seemingly endless. But the crew didn't falter. They couldn't. They were the last hope for this alien civilization, and they would fight until the end. Finally, with a loud hum, the energy core activated. The floor beneath them trembled as a massive beam of energy shot up from the center of the chamber, illuminating the entire room. The weapon had come to life. Zorath raised its head, its eyes glowing with a fierce light. "It is done," it said, its voice filled with power. "The weapon is ours." With one final push, the Vorons were driven back. The beam of energy blasted them, sending them reeling as the weapon's power surged through the chamber. Emily could feel the force of it, a wave of energy that knocked the Vorons off their feet and sent them scattering. The battle was over. The battle had ended. The Vorons, driven back by the powerful weapon, were retreating into the shadows from which they had come. The hum of the energy core filled the room as the weapon slowly powered down. The team stood in the now silent chamber, panting, their bodies covered in dust and sweat but their spirits high. They had done it. Emily lowered her weapon, her hands still trembling from the adrenaline of the battle. She could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her, but it was a weight of triumph. They had faced the impossible, and they had won. Zorath stood by the now deactivated energy core, its eyes glowing faintly. "You have saved us," it said, its voice deep and reverberating. "This weapon will ensure the Varans will not return. You have given us a future." Commander Marks approached Zorath, his face hard but relieved. "We did what needed to be done, but we couldn't have done it alone. You led us here. Without you, we wouldn't have had the chance." Zorath bowed, its head slightly, a gesture that seemed both humble and proud. "We, too, are forever in your debt, humans. The bond between our species has been forged in the fires of this battle. You are the allies we never expected, but the ones we needed most." Tara Jensen stepped forward, her voice filled with quiet respect. "We'll help you rebuild. This planet, it still has life in it. The weapon wasn't the only thing we saved today." Emily turned to face the alien world outside the chamber. Through the large viewing windows, she could see the darkened sky above, once filled with the sound of battle, now quiet and still. The land below was scarred, but it was still beautiful. Green patches of life clung to the surface, and in the distance the peaks of tall mountains rose toward the sky. The alien world still had hope. "Let's make sure they don't have to face this again," Emily said, her voice steady but full of determination. "We'll help them rebuild, together." They had all come to this alien planet as strangers, but now they were something more. They were the foundation of a new relationship between humanity and this ancient civilization, a relationship built not just on shared struggle, but on mutual respect and cooperation. The team spent the next several weeks on the alien world, working with Zorath and the remaining survivors of the civilization to rebuild. The weapon, though powerful, had been just one part of the long journey ahead. The alien race had suffered greatly, and now it was time to help them heal. Emily and her crew learned more about the alien species than they could have ever imagined. Zorath, along with the other survivors, shared their knowledge of the